when I was released from the hospital, the first thing that I did was go out and buy a punching bag, and I put it in the main room of my house. I set it up and I started punching it. And I get a little emotional when I talk about it because it's still, even though it was 2019, it still feels like yesterday
Right.
that I felt this weight come off of my shoulders. And
Wow.
it was a weight that I could not release through talk therapy. I could not find a release from with medication. And it literally 180'd my life. Uh,
Wow.
Take his mind, the mind.
I'm Samaya Simone, and welcome to What's Your View, the show with a mission. We're here today with a special guest, Tim the Sackman, and he's here with us today to talk about depression. So let's talk about it because depression is something that it's a silent killer. And many of you listening to the show today have either experienced it or you know someone who did. So we want to talk about, I think it's an issue that we need to bring more awareness to. But while we're bringing awareness to it, I want to bring awareness to solutions as well. So that's really all important. So, Tim, let's talk. Like, I know that you've gone through depression. Um,
yes,
where did this all like? Tell us the audience a little bit about your journey.
yes. First off, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on the program. I really appreciate this opportunity to raise awareness.
You're welcome,
So,
and thank you for being here.
sure, it's my pleasure. So I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress-induced clinical depression back in 2019 after suffering a tremendous amount of loss in my life. I was born and raised in what most people consider an extreme religion. And upon leaving that religion, I actually lost contact with my immediate family, with everyone who raised me from birth to 30 years old. I lost a marriage in the process, and all of my closest friends, pretty much 99% of my social support system in my life was instantly taken away. And those people were not even allowed to acknowledge me, to say hello, to look me in the eye most of the time. So that, coupled with a few other life stresses that were happening at the same time, led me down a dark path where I developed clinical depression.
Yeah, that would probably depress most of us. That's a lot. It's a lot to lose everything like that.
Yeah,
Um,
it was tremendous.
Absolutely. But you didn't stop there. Like you went through that, which was I think a natural response to what you were going through, but you didn't stop there. That
That's right.
that's not what your
Ab
story didn't stay there.
Absolutely not. So my mental health was continuing to decline, and I had gotten myself into talk therapy, and I was also on multiple medications. But even while on the medication and even while in talk therapy, I was still continuing to deal with suicidal ideation, and that was creeping in more and more frequently as time went on. And somewhere in that process, I also wound up being defrauded by a friend, a close friend of mine who I had started a business with.
Hmm.
And that put me into financial trouble, which led to bankruptcy. So it was like another whammy on top
Right.
of the already bad situation.
Right.
And I wound up overwhelmed with suicidal ideation. It became so frequent that one day I woke up and it was literally the only thing that I could think of doing that day. I knew if I was going to do one thing, that was going to be it. So I wound up calling my therapist and letting them know. They called the suicide hotline. That wound up sending me to the emergency room of a local hospital. And it was there in the emergency room, after going through that process and getting to a certain point where they had stripped me down and put me in a room with a little tiny glass window, and there were little metal wires between it. And it was there that I decided that I needed to do something for myself, that I
Mhm.
needed to stop trying to rely on someone to say the magic words or give me the magic pill that's going to resolve my issues.
Right.
Those things were crutches, and they also helped me
Okay.
through a very difficult time. So I'm not knocking medication or therapy
Right.
at all.
Well, crutches help even, right? Like when if you
Yeah,
need a crutch, at the time
ab-
you need the crutch.
absolutely.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm not knocking medication at all or therapy. I think it's great to find the tools that work for you. And those were tools that helped me move a few steps forward in my
Okay.
journey, but they didn't get me out of
Right.
that dark area. So in that emergency room, when I was in that small room, I decided I needed to do something that relied just on me. And I knew that I was dealing with a lot of anger, a lot of suppressed anger over everything that had been happening. Um, and I looked up a healthy outlet for anger, and I found that a punching bag was one of those things you could use to get a healthy
Mm.
release of anger. So when I was released from the hospital, the first thing that I did was go out and buy a punching bag, and I put it in the main room of my house. I set it up and I started punching it. And I get a little emotional when I talk about it because it's still, even though it was 2019, it still feels like yesterday
Right.
that I felt this weight come off of my shoulders. And
Wow.
it was a weight that I could not release through talk therapy. I could not find a release from with medication. And it literally 180'd my life. Uh,
Wow.
I, I felt this. Trained the first time that I hit that bag. I punched it for around 2 hours. I didn't know what I was doing. I wound up with bloody fists and little injuries, all kinds of sprains and tiny injuries in my hands because I had no idea how to properly hit the bag.
Right.
But the feeling of release, that feeling of this, the weight of the world is no longer on my shoulders. I suddenly was able to get some of that out and put it in this direction. That was life changing.
Wow.
So I decided that I don't want to stop doing this. It really feels like it's helped me tremendously. So I started doing it more regularly. And for the first few months, I would say around 2 months, I didn't have any kind of plan or anything. I just would hit the bag. I would feel that release. I would feel better about myself. And then I started to notice that my self-confidence was going up. My self-esteem was going up. And all of the sudden, my suicidal ideation wasn't there anymore. And
Wow.
it had been about 2 months, and I wasn't having any thoughts. And this is coming from a place where they consume my whole life. So within that 2 month period, they were gone. And I had noticed by the end of the 2 months. But it didn't stop there. It kept building me up. And I decided, when I realized that, I decided I want to make this a daily routine. This makes me feel better every time that I do it. So why wouldn't I do it every single day? You know?
Right.
Um, and so I made a dedication. I'm going to train every single day until depression's wiped off from the face of the planet. That was my dedication. I did it publicly just so that I could hold myself accountable to a daily routine.
Right. But I'm interested in how you didn't stop at I'm going to do this every day until depression is wiped out of me. Right? Like you said, the face of the planet. That's a
The
whole
face,
different.
the
That's
face
a whole
of the
nother
planet.
level right there. That's
Yeah, the face of the planet, because depression comes on a scale. right? It's not like a disease that we can cure. So what I do now, I consider beating depression. We beat depression into submission. We beat depression into remission.
Mm-hmm.
And that way we can enjoy a healthy, a happy quality of life, and we can keep depression in check. But it requires a lifestyle change. It's not just thing you do once and you feel good about it. If I stopped, I haven't stopped, so I don't know. I don't know what would happen. But if I stopped my daily self-care routine that now revolves around this training, I would be allowing depression to creep back in. I would be
Mm-hmm.
allowing the stresses of life to root and fester in me. And I would be sacrificing a tool that I know helps me every single day. So I didn't want to stop when I felt better. I want
Right.
to stop when I solve the issue. The issue is not with me, it's with my entire environment. There are people everywhere suffering from
Mm-hmm.
depression. If I have a tool that could help them, they need to know about it.
Right.
So when I was training and I made this dedication, at about 20 days into a consistent training routine, my roommate started training with me. At 40 days in, he received a raise at work because his self-confidence had gone up.
Wow.
I received a raise at work 20 days in. Uh, and the benefits kept rolling. All of a sudden, it started to attract attention from other martial artists in the area because I was publicly training, but poorly. I was, I didn't have any technique or anything.
Right.
Um, so some local martial artists actually showed up at my house and trained me in Western boxing and the art of Muay Thai and a little bit of
Mm.
kickboxing. And so then once I had technique, I was able to experience an even better release on the bag because I was no longer breaking myself down. I was no longer injuring myself. Now I could punch with form and technique. I could put more energy in and I could get more stress out without injury.
I want to stress to the audience that your move towards this solution came before even you having the technique or even knowing what you were doing. You got
That's
this
right.
inclination to do something, and this was the idea, and all of this stuff started to morph after you started. The reason I'm making that distinction is because I think a lot of us have this idea that things are supposed to be perfectly in place. Like, I can't do something like this unless I know what I'm doing, right? But that's
That's the
not
misconception. Yeah.
right. And, so I think so many people with success stories will tell you that no, when I started, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. But I did it. I
Yes.
started it in the knowledge and the wisdom and the help. And then you start to inspire other people. Like it's this snowball, this beautiful snowball effect, though, right?
Yes.
That happens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And speaking on that point, the mental health benefits that you can experience from training come way before the physical benefits. They come way before those self-defense tools that you may learn or the technique that you may learn. The mental health, the relief came to me instantly as soon as I hit that bag. And that's part of why this stage 2 of what I'm doing is so important. But I think before we get into that, I should elaborate a little more on the journey.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
So I was training now for about 40 days. I now had some skills and I decided to open up my home to the public. And I built a studio in my living room, the main room of my house. And I padded the floor. I put in multiple boxing equipment, all different bags. And I was inviting strangers in from bars, Uber drivers, anywhere out in public, just to come in for free, hit the bag. I'll train them on some technique so they don't injure themselves. Hit the bag and see if it's something that works for you. See if they have the same experience that I had or something similar that they can benefit from. So I started to do that in my local community, and it really had a really good, like, positive effect. People started talking about it. More people started showing up to the house. People started having good experiences, relieving anxiety, relieving panic attacks, um, getting forward momentum started in their life. Uh, and so I set up a donation box and I was training my local community for free. people were donating, and it started to sustain itself. And that's when COVID hit. And that's when I had to close the home studio.
Ah, right, because that's right. And that's something
Be-
you can't even see coming.
yeah, I had no idea, right? Life's
Right.
going to always throw us challenges.
It
We've got to
does.
be able to roll with the punches. That's what I
That's
like to
right.
say.
And I
It
like
works.
that too, because that's actually sometimes it feels like punches. And
Yeah.
sometimes you feel like you just want to hit something
Yeah.
because of what you're going through at the time. But I never would have thought of a punching bag. Like I wouldn't have thought, not that I thought of hitting people, but you know what I mean? I never
Well,
would have
that's the
thought
thing.
maybe I should buy a punching bag and punch
That's
something.
That's exactly why I'm here, and I'm trying to do my best to raise awareness to what somatic healing is. So
Mm,
when you get that inclination and you ball up your fist and you're angry and you want to release that tension, you want to release that energy, if you have a healthy outlet for it, like a punching bag, you could do it in a way that builds you up instead of breaks you down. You could do it in a way that no one gets hurt, no one calls the police, there's no restraining orders.
right,
It's all pros. There's no cons to getting that
right,
physical release.
right.
And if you look at the animal kingdom, uh, there's one example of like an impala when it's in flight, being chased by a predator. When it escapes the danger, after it's away from that stressor, that fight or flight environment, the first thing that it does is shake. It physically shakes off the stress. And that's a perfect example of what somatic healing is in action in the animal kingdom.
Hmm.
A lot of a lot of people have dogs, and you see a dog get scared, and then the dog will shake after that threat has passed. That's the nervous system completing the reaction that started with fight or flight. And that's the step that we miss, most of us miss
Right,
as
because
human beings.
we're so developed, right? Like in this developed world and mindset, I'm willing to bet if you go back into indigenous cultures, you'll probably find where people did do stuff like that, right?
Yes, well, they were a lot more active. They were a lot more
Right,
physical.
right, right,
We like to talk. We
right,
like to try and rationalize or logic or put into words and come up with solutions. But
right,
this is something that's happening on a physical level to our nervous system. And part of that physical reaction, the completion of it, is that somatic step, that somatic release. So if we go back to our cubicle or we go back to our home, back to our job, and we just try to put it to the side, it actually stores in the body, stores in the nervous system, and it becomes mental illness. In the animal
wow,
kingdom, if they can't get that somatic release, often those animals die because they're unable to shake off the stress.
really,
We don't die, we just develop all kinds of mental health problems.
right, and it's almost like a slow death too, because
Yeah,
I'm gonna go out on a limb to say this because I haven't read this anywhere, but I really think even with the COVID crisis, one of the comorbidities that nobody's talking about is depression. What happens if you get hit with that and you're depressed? How does that
absolutely.
work? Nobody's really talking about that. But I don't know that we really deal with depression in the way that we could deal with it. And what you're saying about the somatic release makes so much sense and it's so simple,
It
right?
is
Like it's a
it
simple solution.
it is a very simple solution, and it's not one way for every person. I want to make that
Right,
clear just to the
right.
audience. Some people find that release in cycling or running
Mhm. Mhm.
or lifting weights at the gym. There's a lot of different ways to experience a somatic release, but this
Right,
is the one that saved my life, and it continues to save my life every day. So this is the one that I can talk about because I have experience with it.
right.
So
Right. You said something a little earlier about not stopping, like making sure that you do it every day. And
y-
it's kind of in the category with like food, right? Like, would you stop eating forever? you know,
yeah,
right? You wouldn't not and expect to live anyway, right? We
right,
know
right.
we have to eat to sustain
Yes,
our bodies on this planet, but we don't think we have to do anything physical,
yeah, absolutely. And that consistency,
right?
that dedication to, I'm going to change my life. I'm not going to start a diet. I'm not going to start an exercise routine. I'm going to change my life. How long does your life last? That's how long you need to make the change for. It's a lifetime decision.
Right, right. And
So,
that's an
so
important distinction.
yes. So speaking on that, because it's a lifetime decision, I had to come up with a way that I could train every day sustainably and not injure myself. Because anything that's healthy for you, any good tool or anything really that's healthy for you, if you take it to an extreme, becomes unhealthy.
Right? Like eating too, right? Like
Exactly.
eating bad stuff, eating too much.
Or too
Same
much.
thing, right.
Absolutely. You can turn anything that's good for you into something bad for you if you don't find the balance in
Right.
the routine that's necessary. So I designed a program for myself and that I could share with others that was sustainable. It was based around a 5 to 10 minute goal every single day.
Mhm.
And it didn't have to be the heavy bag. It could be other forms of martial arts training that involve movement as therapy. And we started to link in other mental health tools into that routine. And I kind of refined it over time. And it's still based around a progress and a growth mindset. So it will continue to be refined the longer I continue to push that ball forwards. But we've layered in multiple mental health tools like visualization, breath work, meditation, and a few other things in with that movement so that people can have access to these tools all over the world. And that's step two, if you'd like to go into that.
Yes, I do. Let's go.
Okay, so
So what
step
is
two
step
was
2?
when COVID hit, I couldn't bring the people into the house anymore. So I had to come up with a way that I could still share these tools with others. And
Okay.
that's when I started a virtual class, a daily training class in which we practice shadowboxing techniques and we mix in those other mental health tools that I was talking about.
Okay.
And I've been doing I've been training consecutively now for 888 days. That was yesterday's number. So today will
Wow.
be 889.
Wow.
Um, and I've been sharing that training with the world through Instagram Live every day at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Wow.
And it's helped so many people overcome all different types of things, PTSD, suicidal ideation, overcome debilitation from depression. And that's when you physically, you're unable to accomplish anything for the day. You wind up laying in bed. I don't know if anybody has been there. I've been to that point where depression will make you feel like your body is physically too heavy to move.
Yeah.
It will lie to you.
Right.
And this part of this routine, one of the tools that we share is actually a progress tracking tool. That's what this list is for. And every day that you show up for yourself, you're adding to that number. You're building up the proof that you can overcome that debilitation. So you're,
I
as a
like
matter of
that.
fact, I'm up, I'm on my feet, I am overcoming factually debilitation. So the next step is to take note of it and give myself credit for it. Because if I don't keep track of it, I'm not going to know how. I would have no idea it's been 888 days. I just think it's a lot of days.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. No, I like that. I really like that.
It's so hard to give yourself credit for what you deserve, especially if you're dealing with a serotonin imbalance that comes from depression or clinical anxiety. It's almost impossible. People will tell you it's impossible. But it is possible if we start to keep track of it. If we give ourselves an anchor back to reality so that when those temporary negative thoughts and emotions invade our mind, we can look at our proof that we're going to overcome them. They're going to pass. And not only is it going to happen today, but we have a track record that lets us know for the next 888 days, we're going to crush depression. We're going to knock it out of the system and we're going to keep moving forwards. So that's why this tool is so important. And that's just one tiny piece of that daily virtual program that I was talking about.
I love it. And I'm willing to bet like having something like that when COVID hit, right? And everything just got stopped. Like most of us were like, "Well, what do we do? Like everything is shut. Like what?" You looked at that board and what happened in your mind?
It reassured me that no matter what is happening in the world, I can show up for myself.
Right. Because you had that
For
next number to switch out the next day.
That's
So
right.
that's a whole nother mental mindset.
Yeah. And it's never going to stop until I leave this planet, you know,
No, I hear
at some
you. I
point.
mean, that's just so wonderful. So let me ask you, do you have milestones like 10,000 days or whatever it is, but do you have milestones that you're looking forward to, or are you just taking it one day at a time?
I kind of celebrate the big, like the hundreds. When it got to
Okay.
100 days, I brought my community together. We had about 15 people come to the house. We all did 100 sit-ups with the bag in the middle of us under our feet. And
Wow.
that was a way to bring people together. Now, because it's virtual, I celebrate other people's achievements. Every time they pass that 100-day mark, I give them a little shout out on social media, and I acknowledge the fact that they're displaying consistency, dedication, and they're making progress every single day. And by sharing it with the world, we can help inspire other people to make progress and find the tools that work for them. So it's really important to not just give ourselves credit, but to share, to be proud of your progress, because that's
Right.
the best way you can help people find what works for them.
Right. I'm in,
So, yeah,
I'm intrigued by how much momentum you got. Like you said, you got to 100 days and that there was people that came with you and celebrated that. But this was when you started, it was just you.
it was just me showing up for myself and sharing my training. I was just training visibly to hopefully motivate and inspire others to train because they could see me, and I was keeping track of those days virtually on social media, so people could say, "Oh, it's day 88. He's still going." You know, look at him go, and that was having a positive effect in itself.
Right.
Just showing up for myself and being public about it was helping motivate and inspire people to do other things in their lives, things that they were
Right.
putting off or procrastinating about, or overcome those thoughts of I can't do this or I can't do that. You can show up. Everyone can show up for themselves to their ability, you know? We're not
Right.
here to compete with each other. We're here to grow and compete with ourselves. So if you
Right.
can show up and challenge yourself to your ability, then you can grow yourself every single day. And that's kind of a distinction between what I do with my program and other programs like fitness programs or mental health retreats or things like that. This is about empowering people,
Mm-hmm.
not enabling people.
Right.
It's not meant to create something that people will have to rely on to help themselves. It's meant to share tools that they can take and put in their toolbox, and then they can learn to help themselves forwards in their path in life. They can pursue their passion and inspire others to pursue their passion. And that's a major differentiator between my routine and fitness routines or other types of mental health programs where it's this is the way.
Right.
This is a box of tools. You
Right.
take what you can use.
Right.
You find your way. I want to see you pursue your passion. It's going to inspire me. It's going
Right.
to make my world a better place if people are living from their heart and following their passion. So it's not about what I'm doing. It's about what you can do for you.
Right. I love that. And I love, like, you make so many really important distinctions, I think. And one of them is the one I think that most people miss, and that's showing up for yourself, right? We see that as being, we taped another show a couple of weeks ago, right? Where we talked about this whole distinction of putting your own mask on first, like taking care of yourself.
Yes.
And when you do that, you show up in the world as a better person and you inspire others to do the same. That's
Yes.
so powerful. Day one was about Tim, showing up for Tim,
Yes.
and then here
Absolutely.
you are, what is it, 889 now?
889 today. And it's about
Wow.
showing up for us. It's not
Right,
about me or putting someone else in front of me. It's about
right,
viewing people as equal,
right.
right? You deserve the same access to mental health care that I deserve.
Mm-hmm.
And let's think about it as what we can do for each other. In
Right,
that way, self care is not selfish. Self care is about empowering yourself and empowering others.
right. That is so wonderful. That is wonderful. So now you drive around the country. So
That's step
talk,
three.
yeah, okay, yeah. Like I'm like, this is all so great. So you drive around the country in you name it the Beat Depression bus,
The Beat Depression bus. It says Beat Depression on the side of it, to help raise awareness to the cause. And
right?
then there's also signs on the side of this bus that have QR codes. So everywhere that this bus goes, if people scan that QR code, it takes them to that social media page where they can have access to the free classes. And they can also contact me for free training, which is what I'm offering from the Beat Depression bus. It's a 77 Volkswagen bus that's been custom outfitted with a one-of-a-kind heavy punching bag hanger that comes out the side of the door. And we set up out in nature, on the beach, in the woods, on the tops of mountains, and also at any facility that's willing to help us raise awareness and empower people with free mental health care. And
Wow,
that's the point. It's got to be free. Mental health care is a basic human right. It
right,
should be free. This
right.
is what I can do about it. So I'm bringing that tool, that punching bag. That was the first step. It all goes back to the sack. Hitting the sack is what saved my life. Hitting that punching bag. It's right below me right now. That's what I'm knocking
Wow,
on. But yeah, it all goes back to that first moment where I felt that physical release. That's what I was sharing with people in my hometown and local community before we went virtual. The virtual was me rolling with the punches, me adapting to the change.
right.
And now we're in an environment that's opening back up where I'm able to go to people. And because we're outdoors, we can do this in nature. We can do this with space. We can do this socially distanced even. And I can share that tool that saved my life with others. And when they find it, oh my goodness, it's it's powerful.
Wow, yeah, because I'm about to buy a punching bag. Like, my mom always said it's not the fall, it's how you get up. And this is making me feel like, we see these things as being bad. Like, going through depression certainly feels bad, right? But
Right.
then it makes you wonder, when you have the proper response to whatever it is, you come back so much better, and it makes you wonder, would maybe we shouldn't use the word bad. Maybe we should use the word challenge, tough, but bad, right? When so much good can come out of it. Had you not experienced depression,
Right. I would not
you
have
wouldn't
found the way out.
know. And be able to offer that way as a choice for so many other people.
Yes, absolutely. I think a lot of it is the wording that we use and also the
Hmm.
mindset that we have around depression and what depression is.
Right,
Depression is a mental health condition and it's a life-threatening one. It's
right,
one that leads to suicidal ideation. So
right.
here's the tweak. Instead of just looking at depression as a life-threatening mental health condition that you're going through, if we focus on the fact that we're going through it, we're showing up every day and we're going through it day by day. You are overcoming it day by day. Every day that you stay alive, you are going through a life-threatening condition. So that
Hmm.
is an extreme display of strength and resiliency. We
Right,
just have to acknowledge it.
right.
And that's part of that list tracking tool. Acknowledge that you have survived 100% of those worst days when you thought it was going to end, when you thought it couldn't get any worse, when you thought this was it. You survived. You're here now. You survived those days. So give yourself credit for your strength and resiliency. And then you can start to build yourself back up and view yourself accurately instead of allowing that imbalance to give you a negative view of yourself. You can view yourself accuracy based on your strength.
Right, right. Because you know what I realized too about depression?
What's
If
that?
you had a broken leg, everybody would see you have a broken leg. You'd see you have a broken leg, and we'd all agree that something's broken and you need time to heal, and it would be acknowledged by the people around you. But depression is silent a lot of times, and a lot of people who are feeling it, nobody knows. Even themselves, they may not realize, wow, something in me is broken. and it needs the same it needs the same honor and the same healing process that anything on you that's broken needs. But we don't do that. We keep
Yes.
going, we try to hide it. Sometimes it's not even trying to hide it, but it's just the way our
That's
lives are. We don't connect with people a lot of times on that level.
yeah.
And so the necessity to heal it is just not acknowledged. And so people end up suffering in silence.
Yeah.
And sometimes, even when they aren't silent, many of us don't know how to respond. Like if somebody tells you, I'm depressed, what do you say? What do you say to somebody? Now, if somebody comes up to you and says, I'm really depressed, like I'm feeling like I don't want to live, you know,
I'm I
what do
I
you do?
say I'm here to support you. You have to make it clear that you want to be there as a support. Each
Right,
individual is going to have different needs. They're going to have
right,
different tools that work for them.
right,
So the most important thing is to let them know, I want to be here to support you. Let me know what I can do. Ask them, let me know what I can do to help out. Do you
right.
need a place to talk? Do you need a space to vent out your frustration? I can listen. I can't necessarily tell you what you need to do for you, but I can
Hmm.
share what's worked for me
Right.
because I've gone through clinical depression. And now on the other side, I can share with you my journey, my path, and these tools that have helped me. And some of them have helped a lot of other people as well. And maybe you could give them a try. But I'm not
Mm,
going to tell people what to do.
right.
And a major thing that a lot of people do is they tell people that they're not depressed. It's one of the worst things you could say.
Right. Right.
you, you can't see from the outside, like you mentioned earlier. You
Right.
cannot see. Like a broken limb, you can see it's in a cast. You
Right.
can't see from the outside if someone's depressed. They can be laughing and looking like they're having the time of their life, but
Right.
inside they're just barely hanging on.
Right. Right.
And that's one of the major hurdles with what I'm doing now, with with trying to grow this movement and trying to help empower people, is that there's a social stigma around depression where they don't want to talk about it.
Hmm.
And if we don't talk about it, then we can't solve the problem. We can't find the solution. And people feel like they're alone when there's so many people going through such a similar life experience. They are so not alone. It was an epidemic before the pandemic. And when the pandemic hit, it exacerbated the situation.
Right.
Isolation is tremendously bad for
Yeah.
someone dealing with depression.
Right.
So those numbers, the figures we have now, aren't even an accurate reflection of how bad the problem is
Right.
because of this stigma, and people just don't view it accurately. That's the thing. They view it as weakness. It's a
Right.
strength. If you're
Right.
here, you're a survivor, you're you're moving forwards every day, that's strength. That's not
Right.
weakness.
It's not. And if you broke your leg, nobody would say or even think that you're weak, right?
Yeah.
Like we're
Or tell
humans.
you it's not broken,
Right. We're
right?
multi-dimensional, right? Mind, body, and spirit. And so, yes, your
Yeah.
body could be broken, but your mind and your spirit can be too. And until we realize that, right? And
Yeah.
we realize that we have to maintain all three, then we're not going to be dealing properly. So I really love what you're doing. And
Thank you.
that showing up for yourself, that's just to me that if I could just like go outside with a bullhorn and be like, show up for yourself because it's so
Yeah.
pertinent.
It's
It was,
extremely important. It's more
yeah,
important every day. Every
right.
day that goes on, it gets more and more important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now that you're traveling the country, right? How
Yes.
much depression are you finding?
So at this exact moment in time, I'm stranded in Colorado. The
Wow.
bus is under repair. So because of COVID and delays in shipping and all of those things, it slowed down this repair process. So this
Okay.
bus has been sitting here now for about 8 months. So when
Really? Wow. Oh,
yeah,
you
so I
really
had,
slowed down. Wow.
yeah, it's been sitting and we're now on the verge.
Okay.
It needs an engine. The
Okay.
original engine was breaking down every 50 miles. I was stranded all over the country. I've been stranded
Right.
in Death Valley
So
for
this
a week.
so this
It was
hasn't
no
been an
fun.
easy. Well, I know I can imagine. But this hasn't been an easy journey for you then. Like it's not everything, I've dealt with that and I'm past it and everything is perfect. You're still
No,
needing to
it's
solve problems and go up against challenges.
absolutely. And like there are challenges, like I said, every single day there are
Right.
challenges. Sometimes they're way more than others. Sometimes they come in waves. Sometimes it's a cluster.
Right.
It's one thing breaking after the other. And then, I'm stuck here, I'm stuck there. I don't know how I'm going to eat, or I don't know how I'm going to get the bus out of this situation.
Right.
Um, but every single day I still show up for myself and I show myself that I can move forwards. And that's what has developed that progress and growth mindset that gets me out. I'm never defeated, right? I'm only set back. I'm never
Right.
defeated. I'm given a new obstacle so that I can learn how to overcome it and become even stronger because of it.
I love
So
it.
now that the bus is here and it's been here for about 8 months, at the 6 month mark, I was back in my hometown waiting for this to be repaired. And I wasn't really finding that I was capable of making the same impact as when I was with the bus. So I
Hmm.
bought a cheap mode of transportation. I drove across the country to the bus from New Jersey to Colorado. And now I've been with the bus for the last few months. And because I'm here, we're able to link up because
Right.
word is getting around and people are seeing the bus. If they don't see the bus, they don't know it exists.
Right.
I could talk about
Right.
it all day, but once you see it, you're like, oh, that's something.
Right.
It's not
Right.
just words, it's a manifestation of my dream. It's a manifestation of this movement. It's a free mental health vehicle that
Right.
provides free care to anyone willing to show up for themselves and give it a shot, pun intended.
Wow. And you know
So,
what? I'm going to
yeah,
go out and say it's a metaphor for life, right? Because in life, sometimes you get stuck, sometimes things break down. There's problems to solve. I'm sure you encounter all kinds of things on the road,
yeah,
even when the bus is rolling. But life is like that, isn't it? Like, you know, to
yeah.
me, it's so powerful that you're still on you're on day 889, and all of those days weren't perfect.
They weren't perfect, but they were progress.
I
Every
like
single
that.
one was progress.
I love it.
It
I
doesn't
love
have to
that.
be perfect. We don't even have to know where it ends. We just have to keep going in the right direction. And then we'll
Right.
get there with time,
Right.
with consistency, with dedication. You'll get there.
Right.
But it's about the process. It's about
Right.
showing up every day and moving forwards. And so
Right.
that's what I've been doing for 889 days. Now, we're days away, supposedly, from having a new engine in this bus and getting it back on the road. So
That's
I'm
wonderful.
very close. But when it was rolling, that experience was tremendous. It was the best, most fulfilling part of my life is to be able to share that tool that saved me with other people. And I
Right.
say that tool that saved me. The tool didn't save me. I saved myself by using the tool. I think
Oh,
that's an
that's
important.
important. Right.
I
The
yeah,
important distinction.
I gotta catch those things before they
Right.
before I
Right.
put them out there. But this was the tool that allowed me to save myself. And when I find other people who this tool works for and they experience that release, it's the
Hmm.
most fulfilling part of my life. I get to see somebody start a journey that is going to change and positively impact the rest of their life and the lives of the people around them. So the people that I've trained on the road, I'm friends with all of them. We stay in contact. They tell me how things are going, and some of them it doesn't work for. Some of them hit the
Right.
bag and they're like, "This is nothing. This doesn't do
Right.
anything for me,"
Right.
and that's fine. You can't be all things to all people, and there's not one
Right.
way for
Right.
everybody. But the ones that it does work for, it's such a powerful thing to be a part of. So I feel uh, blessed to be a part of that process. I feel honored to be able to share something that will continue to have this ripple effect and positively impact so many lives down the road. And then there's another step coming. So if you want to talk
Okay,
about
so
that.
yes, I do. Yes, let's go there.
So once the bus is back on the road, I'll be traveling again and offering that free heavy bag therapy. But the dream, the next step in the process is the virtual program got people up out of their beds and on their feet, punching in their house. The physical program got them exposure to that physical outlet, that tool that got them out their front door and to the bus. And now the next step is, where do they go after they hit the bag? I have to have places to send them where they can continue their journey. At the
Right.
moment, I'm linking up with multiple martial arts studios across the country who are
Oh,
willing to offer free training from this as this next step.
oh,
But
wow.
the dream is to create facilities where people who are diagnosed or people who are struggling can go train for free and get access to therapy for free. And this is all very possible and plausible through social media.
Yes.
Instead of the money that's currently coming from advertising companies that show advertisements on social media right now, instead of that money going to independent creators who are investing in their own wealth and success, we can redirect those funds to this movement, and I can create facilities across the country, across the globe, that offer free heavy bag training, free somatic therapy from qualified professionals. We can pay therapists to be there and provide free care for anyone who's willing to go. That's the dream. I'd like to have a facility everywhere so that people have access everywhere they need it. And they need it everywhere, honestly.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. It's an investment in people, right? Because when
yeah,
people show up at their best, like, imagine the world. Imagine the world we could
yeah,
be living in. I mean, look
yeah,
at you, one person who started that day one journey, and now look at this.
yeah. And it's me on my journey has had a huge positive impact in my life and multiple other people's lives. And so far up to this point, I've done it with no funding. This is out of
Wow.
my pocket. This is all of my life savings, and everything is going in this direction because I know where we're headed.
Right.
But just the simple fact, if you look at social media influencers like Logan Paul, he made $22 million last year
Wow.
through social media. And I'm not knocking Logan Paul or anybody else who's making a living through social media,
Right.
but I would like to use that money to influence change in the world and to create these free mental health care facilities, because we can change our environment. We can improve our environment. And that's the world I'm living in too. I want to see people happy. I want to see people healthy. People deserve access to free mental health care. And if no one else is providing it, I want to provide it. But the only way that we can get there is together. The
Right.
only way that we can make this happen is if we work together. Every single follow on the social media page at Sack Life Official takes us one step closer to providing free care for anyone who's struggling, anyone knows who's struggling, and it potentially exposes millions of people around the world to free tools that could save their lives. So it's worth following.
No, it totally is. Guys, y'all gonna have to look up Tim the Sackman Manthey on Instagram. Um, and tell them where tell the audience where they can find you. We'll put links anyway in the show notes. But where can
Yes,
they find you?
you can find me 100% of the time at Sack Life Official on Instagram. That's one word, Sack Life Official. And
Okay.
then you could also contact me through sacklifeofficial.com. There's a chat box on there. It goes to my phone, uh, and you'll have access to that 24 hours a day. And there are a lot of other resources, both on that social media page on Instagram and also on the website. I did a series where I interviewed martial artists about their the effect of martial arts on their mental health. And they help break that stigma and share things that work for them. And I also did a series where I interviewed mental health advocates on different tools that work for them, because everybody's got to
Okay.
find the one, you know.
That works for them, right? Like the person
Yeah,
who punched the bag and it's like, they might be a bike person,
right.
right? Somebody
Or
that,
or there might be other tools like grounding tools or journaling or the gratitude tool. There are a lot of different ways that we can help ourselves, but we need to talk about them. So that's
right.
why that's how we'll get access to them. And I'm trying to provide that access through the website and also through um, Sack Life Official on Instagram. If you go to the IGTV page, you'll see series there. One of them is TKO Stigma. That's where we break down stigma by talking openly. One is Staying Alive. That's where we share mental health tools that help people stay alive. And there are several other ones there as well to give people access to.
All right, y'all. Y'all gonna have to give him some support. Give him some support. Look him up. Let him know how you feel. Reach out, right? And comment. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you think. Tell us how you're feeling. So let me ask you something.
Hmm.
If you were to go back 10 years, was there any inkling that you would be doing something like this now?
No way. No way. I would have no idea that all I have to do to have a happy life is punch the air in front of me. I'd have no idea. There's
Wow.
no one could tell me that. It would sound ludicrous.
Right.
And that's also when I was clinically depressed and people were telling me, "Oh, this can help. Oh, that can help." I didn't believe them. I
Right.
didn't believe them until I tried it and I experienced it. There was no way to know until I
Right.
experienced it.
Right.
So that's one of the huge lessons. It's like you have to try,
Right.
otherwise you're 100% not going to know.
Right. Exactly. And you just don't know where your life will take you sometimes, too, right? Like you can,
Yeah.
I think a lot of times people get stuck in a moment and how that feels. And when it's not good, they lose hope, not realizing that you have no idea what life can bring you if you try,
Yeah.
and when you find the tools that work for you, you have no idea where you would go in life. So now here you are. I'm imagining you see some beautiful places.
Oh, I see the most beautiful place. That's one of the greatest things about being able to take this bus out to experience nature from a mountaintop and to use that same tool that helps me every day to feel that physical release out with the sun beaming on me, the sky changing colors, wildlife showing up from time to time. There was a moment where I was in Quigley Canyon in Santa Clarita, California, and I just drove off the road up a dirt path to the top of a mountain. I set up the bag and I just trained for a few hours into sunset. And I'm I'm not kidding, but an American eagle showed up and it was hanging out like a few feet away from the top of the bag, just hang gliding there. And I looked at
Wow.
that bird and I thought, wow, like I am as free as this bird right now. Like
Wow.
you can't, there's no words to describe those feelings.
Right.
But that's the experience that I want to share with other people for free if they're willing to give it a shot because it's life changing.
Wow. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And I would imagine, um along with the places that you're meeting some really cool people too
I
as you
am
cross the country.
absolutely, I am meeting some amazing people all from all different walks of life, photographers, musicians, a lot of different creative, talented people. I've also been able to link up with professional martial artists. I trained for 2 months in California with the two-time world champion of Muay Thai,
Oh,
who
wow.
happens, he's a really cool guy. His name's Greg Wooten. He's interested in mental health and making a positive impact. He did some mental health work in London, where he's from, and he agreed to train me for free for 2 months because he likes what I'm doing.
Wow.
And by
Wow.
him sharing his skills with me, I'm able to pass them on to others
Right.
and create that ripple effect. And the same thing is happening here. Even on the way to this bus, I was able to link up with some major uh, martial arts studios, Easton Training Center, and also Bang Muay Thai, who train professional UFC fighters. And because of those contacts, I was able to meet the UFC fighters, and they were able to share and open up on the TKO Stigma series and talk about how martial arts has impacted their mental health. And so it just continues to become more and more powerful and more beautiful the further I go.
All starting with you showing up for yourself
And continuing
on
with
day
me.
one. Right, right.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's just fascinating. And I think it's the step that many overlook. So that's why I keep emphasizing it because, you know, a lot of times we look out into the world and we think, wow, like what can I do to make a difference? Well, start off with showing up for yourself.
Yeah, it starts with you. It
Right,
really does. Like it often didn't make sense when I was growing up, thinking about if I were to think what do I need to do for myself, the words, because of the conditioning, would almost make me feel like that's selfish.
right.
And self-care is absolutely not selfish.
Right. We're kind of taught that though. I don't be selfish.
That's
Right.
part of the
Do for
stigma. That's
others.
part of
Right.
that conditioning that we need to break
Right.
through now.
Right. Right. Not realizing that yourself is who does for others. So when you get yourself in prime working order, one of the natural things that can happen is that you're going to show up for other people.
Yeah. And even taking it down to like a family aspect, children learn from their parents growing up. Children imprint what is right and wrong and their guide for life from their parents. So if
Right.
their parents are sacrificing all of their time and energy to help others and they're not taking care of themselves, they're teaching their children to do the same thing. So we need to break that cycle. And it goes
Right.
back to self-care. If you show up for yourself, your children are going to see a happy, healthy adult, and they're going to get an impression of what a happy, healthy adult really looks like.
Right.
And
Right.
that now you've changed. Now you're on a generational scale. We're making a generational impact. But it goes back to that self-care. Show up for you. Treat yourself as an equal with equal value to the others around you. Treat yourself as you would treat someone who you care about, a good friend. That's how you should be treating yourself.
Right.
That sets the tone. That sets the example.
So you treat yourself as a good friend.
As a good friend, as an honored guest.
I like that. I like that a lot because I think that's the thing. That's a real important key,
Yeah.
and
Sometimes it's really hard to think about how to treat yourself, but it's real easy to think about how you would treat a friend.
right,
Simply treat yourself like a friend.
right,
That's it.
right, right. It should be, I guess that should be something that we all know to do, but we don't.
Yeah.
We don't. And we should all understand that sometimes the spirit gets broken. Sometimes the mind feels clouded and it doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. It
Yeah.
just like it doesn't mean anything is wrong with you if your body gets sick or your leg gets broken or it just means that you need that time. You need to show up for yourself to heal yourself.
Yeah.
That's really what all it means.
Yep, it's what you do with it. It's what you do with
Okay.
that challenge or that struggle or that sickness. It's how you're going to get through it.
Right.
That's what
Right.
matters.
That's what matters. It's that healing process also applies to the spirit. And so I really appreciate you coming today. We're running out of time, but I will say this. We could go on, like we could literally go on and on.
I'll be
Because
talking about it for the rest of my life.
yes, yes, and you'll have to come back. You'll have to come back at some point. Um, just because I definitely want to deal with this topic again. It's an important
Absolutely.
topic and it's something that we don't talk enough about, especially attaching to it tools that actually practically work, right? Just sitting
Yes.
down talking about it, crying about it, a lot of times just keeps you stuck in that same place. But movement, punching
Yeah.
something, if that's sometimes it's what you're depressed about too. You might just need to punch something,
Yeah.
you
If your
know,
body's telling you to punch, just punch the
punch
right
it.
thing
Right,
and
right.
you'll
Punch
be
the
all
right thing.
punch
Right,
the right thing
right.
and you'll
Punch
be
the right
okay.
thing. Right, right, right. But this is a
Yeah.
way to do that. And so that's great. And tell the audience again before we go where they can find you.
Yes, if anybody would like to give any of this a shot, or you'd just like to show up to support free mental health care for others, please do find me at Sack Life Official on Instagram.
Wonderful. And please, guys, do that. So, Tim, we'll do this again. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.